Are you ready to expand your life and reality? Join us for the next hour with Jamie Bates as she shares life-changing thoughts, techniques, and awarenesses to help you expand your reality.
Hello and welcome. I am Jamie Bates, consciousness facilitator and expander of realities. My mission with my radio show is to create greater awareness of what is possible and to expand you beyond the limitations of this reality. I am grateful that you're joining me today. And today I want to talk about awakening and what do you do when your family is mad at you through your awakening process. I think this is a big theme I'm seeing right now currently, and today I wanted to kind of share with you, if you're experiencing your great awakening and your family is not happy about it, I want to kind of share some tips and some tools with you when you're finding yourself shifting and changing and those around you don't like it very much. Today I want to discuss some difficulties and struggles I personally went through and some of the things I see that others go through on their awakening journey, and maybe give you some tips and some tools that you can use as you are on your journey. Because let's face it, as we're waking up and we're realizing that there's certain things in our life that we don't want to tolerate anymore and that we just don't want in our space. And when we have these friends and maybe even family members who don't really want to acknowledge that, and they really want to stay in their own stuff. How do you personally allow yourself to still change and give them the space to create whatever it is that they want to create? Yeah, so today let's go ahead and dive in. And first, we're going to start by just really getting ourselves into that expanded space. So let's go ahead and put our barriers down. Our barriers down, our barriers down, our barriers down, our barriers down. And let's go ahead and expand out. Make yourself as big as the state that you're in. You're just going to expand out your being, not your body. So if you've never done this before, we're just expanding out our being so we can just really get into more space of us, so we can clear out stuff that no longer works and really allow ourselves to be more present with what's going on. So make yourself as big as the state that you're in, all the way out and all the way down and all the way out. And we're just expanding your being, not your body, and the country that you're in, all the way out, and all the way down, and all the way up. And as big as the planet that you're on, bigger, faster, bigger, faster, bigger, faster, bigger, faster, and the universe. And the multiverse, multiple universes, and times that by million, times that by million, times that by million, times that by million, times that by million. All the way out to the space of who you be, as the infinite being that you be. Awesome. Great. So let's face it, awakening can be hard, right? It's a life change that really literally creates ripples of change in every single aspect of your life. And whether you're just starting your journey on waking up, or you're neck deep into it, it's one of those things where it's just like there's a continuous amount of letting go, releasing, shifting, and changing. And the reality is those around you might not like it very much. I have several conversations, and there's lots of things I kind of wanted to go over today as I kind of talk about all of these things. And I kind of wanted to start kind of small and kind of work my way out. I had a conversation the other day recently with someone, and they were talking about Facebook and about how they're waking up and how they want to share certain awarenesses, right? And this is a conversation I have often with people, and they feel like there's certain people, let's just even say on their Facebook, that would judge them and judge kind of their process. And it's like, they want to go to this place where they feel like they don't want to have that feeling anymore. And I wanted to address that today, because I don't know where at some point where we decided that waking up means that we're literally just going to be kind of like numb to everything, because that's not true. The reality is you're going to be more aware of things than you've ever been aware before. And the reality is you're going to be aware that there is going to be people who are going to judge you, and judge you harshly, to the point where it may stick you, and it may energetically upset you. And the thing is like, I think I got to a certain point in my journey where, and I don't even really remember where, at what point this was in my awakening journey, but where I started to decide that, you know what, awakening was about me. My journey to awakening was about me, and finding the life that worked for me, and finding my best life that worked for me. And if that meant that, you know, Janice, that I, and I'm just making up names here, making up situations, but that I went to high school with 20 years ago, who I haven't talked to in 15, has an issue with what I say on Facebook, then I'm kind of done having Janice be my Facebook friend, right? Like there's no part of having someone have access to me, that is going to harshly judge me, that I have room for anymore. And I know that, like, for some reason we have decided that through this awakening process, that means that that we just have to kind of like turn the cheek, or like we have to be kind to everyone, or, and I'm not even saying that it's unkind, but what I'm saying is if there's someone in your world, let's just say even your your digital media world, that you don't talk to on a daily basis, who you are aware of, that is judging you, why in the world would you allow them to stay there for you? Everything, all of that is, and all of that, 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 all of that. Yes, all of that is. Can we just choose to remove all of that from all of the universes? And can we just choose that now? And vaporize, 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 vaporize. All I'm doing here is I'm just shifting the energy so you can have a different choice, a different possibility. Because there's no part of awakening that means that you have to keep reference points to people, places, and things that don't actually contribute to you any longer. And no way, shape, or form does awakening mean that you have to be cordial, and you have to like accommodate everyone. And I'm not saying that, like, I'm kind of in the viewpoint where it's like, listen, if I'm aware that someone I went to high school with 20 years ago has a lot of judgments about me, I'm just going to unfriend them. I'm going to move on with my life, because it's not about them, it's about me. Yeah, everywhere you can't choose that. Everywhere you're stuck in this idea, all of that, all of that, all of that, this idea that you have to be this, like, I have to keep them on my friends list because blah 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 blah, everything, all of that is, can we just choose to remove all of that from all of the universes? And can we just choose that now? And vaporize, 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 vaporize. I went through a period where there was a lot of people who had a lot of projections and a lot of expectations that I was Facebook friends with, right? And they were always projecting what people should choose and what people should do and what people should have and how people should act, and blah blah blah. And I just went through and I'm like, I just don't have time and space for that anymore in my life. I just don't. Like, I can let them have their viewpoints, absolutely, but if I am aware that they are projecting that wrongness at me continuously, then I'm kind of done with it. Like, and it's not about them, and I'm not even making them wrong. I am choosing to go beyond it in a way where it's like, you know what, I'm willing to say, I'm willing to release you from my life so I can have a life that works for me. And everywhere you're not allowed to do that, everything, all of that is all of that, 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 all of that. Can we just choose to remove all of that from all of the universes? And can we just choose that now? And vaporize, 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 vaporize. I just want you to kind of untangle from that for a moment. And I'm not saying that every single person that I'm friends with on social media is in 100% allowance of what I'm doing in any way, shape, or form, because I know that that's not even close to being true. But what I am aware of is, and what I'm talking about here is, if you are keeping people in your close-knit community of even being on social media with, that you are aware of, have a ton of judgments and a ton of reference points to who you should be and what you should do, it's time to reevaluate that for yourself. Yeah, that right there. I actually had a person, this was a fellow, I'm going to say colleague, healer person of mine. This was a few years ago. And it, she just kind of always had this energy of continually projection and expectation. And, I felt myself being in this cycle of making her wrong all the time, and I didn't like it. I honestly didn't care what she wanted to choose for her life. And I think that that's where the awakening journey really starts to come in, when you don't care what other people are choosing. Like, I didn't care what she was choosing, but I was aware that I didn't like to be stuck in that place where I felt like I had to judge her. Now, what I was aware of there was, I was aware that she was holding that space because she herself felt like she was wrong. So what she was doing was, she was projecting wrongness at other people all of the time, all of the while having the energy of being wrong herself inside of her. So when I looked at her, when I seen her profile, when I seen something that she posted, it instantly made me feel like I had to make her wrong, and I didn't like it. And so I had unfollowed her. I didn't want to see her stuff anymore. But then it was like this constant, like, she was always kind of um, commenting on my things, and always kind of had that edge of like it was like this energy where I just couldn't, she wouldn't allow me to just like ignore her. And so I had unfriended her and blocked her, and she sent me this email and was like, why did you do that? I love you and I love your stuff, and how unkind. And she went into all of this story, and I just emailed her back and I said, you know what, it wasn't about you, it was about me. Because it was. I was aware of where she was functioning at and what was going on, and that was fine if that's where she was currently functioning at and what she wanted to create in her life. But it was uncomfortable and it was painful for me. And when you start to see that, what other people are functioning is really in the way that you feel when you're around them. Right. And that's why, as you wake up and you start to kind of look at your relationships with your family, and you start to look at the relationships with even your friends and your coworkers, and you start to realize that certain people make you feel a certain way. And when you get to a certain point where you start to realize that, hey, you know what, I just don't really like feeling this way. And it's really truly not about you, it's about me. We had, me and my husband, when we kind of went through our awakening journey together, I think I was very fortunate to have a partner who, when I started really getting into consciousness stuff, gosh, probably almost like 8 years now, and I really started diving into, how my point of view created my reality, and how I was creating the things I didn't like in my life. And I was actually currently, I think we weren't even dating. I think he was just coming in for classes and things that I was offering. He was kind of like someone who came to my center often, and did a lot of the things that I had going on, because at that time I owned a healing center. And I started, really building relationships with people in my center, and really, focusing on this life that we wanted to create for ourselves, right? And my current husband now, is kind of part of that journey with me. And so we kind of went through awakening together. And one of the things that, that when I started really waking up was, and I started to realize how how I was internalizing so and personalizing how other people felt about themselves and how that made me feel about myself, and how I could shift and change that energy to a point. But if people wanted to still continue um, to choose destructive self patterns, how I had to start standing up for myself and saying, you know what, if you want to choose that for yourself, that's fine, but that doesn't actually work for me. And I think that that's probably one of the most freeing tools that I really learned how to do as I was waking up and as I was coming into myself and as I was realizing what worked for me and what didn't. And so, as you start on this journey and you start really seeing how, people's condescending words, how people's backlash doesn't really work for you, and how you really learn how to start standing in that. So, long story short here, as we were going through this awakening, and this was kind of a many years things was, um, uh, and this is kind of a personal thing here, but I think it's so uh, so God, what is the word I'm looking for? It's important to share this because I think so many of us go through this, and so my husband's mother, it's my mother-in-law, and this was actually like probably pretty much through the time we started dating, and as me and my husband were waking up, we started to realize some of the destructive patterns that we each had in ourselves, right? And one of the destructive patterns and I think so many of us hold on to this destructive pattern um, where gosh, what's the energy I'm looking for? It's like the energy of being addicted to wrongness. It's like the energy where it's like being addicted to feeling low. And I think so many of us are, and that's part of the thing that we start to realize as we wake up is like there's so many around us that are addicted to that depressive feeling, right? That feeling of like not being good enough, that feeling of not being complete, not being whole, not being um, you know, essentially just really not being good enough. And so as we went through this, we started really working on these places and spaces um, where we made each other wrong, right? Where like someone would do something and instead of for me, one of my big triggers was anger. And I could go from uh, 0 to angry really, really fast. And one of the things that I was aware of was I didn't like that about myself. I didn't want to be reactive in anger any longer. It didn't work for me, and it didn't help me create a life that I wanted to create. Because as you become aware through your awakening process that the destructive patterns that you have in your life are the same patterns that you're continuously projecting out. So I was aware that every time I chose to be angry, right? When I would choose angry, I would project angry out, and then anger would kind of, I like to use that garden theory, right? Like I have this big patch of anger in my garden. Okay, we're just going to use that as a visual. And every time I went out and I chose anger, I watered my angry plant, right? And then the more I watered, my bird's going to get angry because I'm talking about it. Every time I watered my angry plant, right, my anger grew. And the more I played in anger, the more anger I had available to me. So that was one of my first things that I really wanted to change. Well, interesting enough, and if we look at how the world works, if we look at the law of attraction, right, we can see that because I had such a large patch of anger energy, I'm going to I'm going to attract someone who is willing to make me angry, because that's when I have this large patch of anger uh, planted in my field, right? I'm telling the universe that I like to be angry. And so the universe goes, okay, well, I'm going to match you with someone who is going to make you angry then, because you enjoy anger, right? That's kind of how the universal law works. So when we first started dating and I started really working on, releasing or or kind of getting to the patterns of anger, one of the things that we realized was my husband came from a long line of family members who like to be angry, but also like to make him wrong. Okay. Now these are all patterns I think most of us have. We have these weird places that we function in. That's part of the reality of playing in this polarity that we've been playing in this reality for so long. I mean, we've been playing in polarity for, you know, whatever, as long as humans have been on this earth. And this shift to the fifth dimension is really the energy that is required to change that. So anyway, so when we started looking at that, one of the things that we started really consciously working on was reducing my husband's, and at the time we were dating, but reducing my boyfriend's need to be made wrong, right? And reducing my need to be angry. And let me tell you what, it wasn't necessarily a beautiful process that we went through. There was screaming and yelling and potentially hitting, and it really was this process of being willing to dive in and realizing that through this awakening process, there was going to be times when we were both going to go under, and we were both going to choose these things that we had been choosing for so long, even though we didn't want them. And, part of this awakening process is really realizing that, you've been functioning in these spaces for a really long time. So it's going to take you a while of even choosing those patterns again and releasing them to really truly let them go. So back to my story here. So going through this, one of the things that we realized was his mom was a big trigger for that. She really was a big trigger for making him feel really bad about himself, and when he would feel bad about himself, he would do things that it's kind of like a child. When a child feels really bad about themselves, then they do things that make other people make them feel worse. And I know that that's kind of a weird energy, but it totally exists. So through this process, we started to realize that a lot of that patterning was coming from his mom and a lot of the members of his family. Now here's where it gets interesting, because so we started actually verbalizing, like, hey, when you say this, it makes me feel this way, you know and that's a big part of awakening, is realizing that those that are around you, those family members that are with you, when they say certain things, the triggers that it triggers within you, and even being willing to say, when you say this, it triggers this inside of me, and I don't actually really want to be this anymore. And I spent a lot of time saying that. I spent a lot of time saying that to my children. Hey, when this happens and this is the choice that you make, it makes this happen for me, and I actually don't desire for this to happen to me. So I'm actively choosing to change this pattern in myself. And I invite you to really even look at, possibly choosing to create something different for yourself as well. Now, of course, I am ultimately responsible for changing the pattern in myself, which I can say that, like, I have really changed. I'm going to say 95% of my self-destructive patterning. I'm not going to say 100, because who knows? I mean, I'm sure there's somewhere that I'm still functioning in energies that I don't want to function in any longer. But when I started really, verbalizing that, what that did was, like I can even say with anger, like for me, it was like, I could act out in anger, and then my kids would be sad, and then they would be upset, and then it would make them feel bad, right? And that was that addiction to feeling bad. And when I started saying things like, when this happens, it triggers this in me and it makes me angry. And the thing is I just don't really want to be angry anymore. I really am willing and committed to really living a life of joy for myself. And joy looks like happiness, and it looks like you doing what you want to do, and it looks like me doing what I want to do, and it looks like us creating a life that works for both of us. And if that's what you're interested in, then let's go together and let's create a life that works best for both both of us. And, when I started really being clear with my children like that, my kids were, gosh, my youngest daughter was probably 8 when I started really saying those kind of things to her. And it was amazing to me, how much more she was able to open up to me when I started saying, when this happens, it makes me feel this way. Like, when I yell at you, it makes me feel like a bad mom, and I don't want to feel like a bad mom anymore. I want to feel like I'm contributing to your life, and I'm helping you create, like what you want to create for you, and I'm helping to, for us to live a life of ease. And that's really truly where I want to go with my life. It was like, all of a sudden, it was like she was capable and able to say, when you say things like this, it makes me feel this way, and then I don't really like feeling that way either, and it brings up a lot of anger for me, and I don't want to be angry either. And it opened up these lines of communication for us, where all of a sudden we were having this open discussion um of being able to really move beyond these places that made us feel bad. And that's a huge part of awakening, is moving beyond these places that make you feel bad. So we started doing this, as well as, I mean, I really kind of went through and talked to, you know many of my family members, and we started talking to my husband's family members about it as well. And instead of meeting us in that area of awakening, my my at the time, I guess we were married at this point, when it started to really escalate, and my mother-in-law would say things, instead of going, okay, I understand how you feel, it was more of that energy of like, oh, well, you don't love me. And it was like, okay, no, that's not even, this isn't even about you. This is about the fact that, like, when we come over and you say things like, I'm disappointed in you, um, and that's not acceptable, and about choices that we're making for our life, that actually makes us feel bad, and we don't really want to feel bad anymore. So if you are not okay with the choices that we're making in our life, like, that's okay. Like, you don't have to be okay with the choices that we're making in our life, but what I do require from you is to understand that when I'm here, I just want to be able to feel like I can be here without you judging me. And if you can't do that, then you have to understand that us being around you isn't going to work. And instead of acknowledging that, that's that kind of that I'm going to say, that type of talk doesn't work for us, it was always turned around about, how that meant something about her. And it continued to escalate, and I see that with a lot of people, that really aren't ready, or maybe even aren't capable of waking up yet, who aren't capable of really taking personal responsibility for, their life and what's going on, is that constant deflection of, instead of going, okay, like, I can meet you, I see that my words potentially hurt your feelings, they have to project back that you're doing something wrong. And when I continue to discuss it and say, I'm not trying to say that you're doing something wrong, what I'm saying is, and I would repeat myself, what I'm saying is when you say things like, that you're disappointed in the way that we parent, or you don't, approve of, someone's choices, and how it should be, how you should be ashamed of yourself, or so on and so forth. Like, that type of talk doesn't actually work for me. And if you want to continue to do that, that's fine. You can do that, but we won't be present for it. And it was like this energy of, like, of continuing to make us wrong. And so we made an executive decision at that point of, like, okay, if this is how the relationship is going to continue, and we were very clear about it, if this is how the relationship is going to continue, it's just really not, we're just really not capable of continuing to be part of this, because it just doesn't work. And the thing is as you go through your awakening, and as you start to realize that there are just people out there that, and it's not even a wrongness, it's just, it's like, for me, I look at it like, we came here to be and do everything, right? Like, I really do personally believe that each and every one of us came here with a mission to be and do everything, and we have spent lifetime and lifetime and lifetime and lifetime doing these things, right? And, and I even look at even my mother-in-law, and I get that she's been fulfilling lots and lots there's lots of places where she's fulfilling certain patterns, and she is upholding certain energies. And you know what? The way that she decides to live her life has really literally nothing to do with me. But I do know that I am committed to myself, and I am committed to really standing in a life that works for me. And in that commitment to myself, I am no longer really even willing. I don't want to say willing, I hate to say willing, but I'm not even really like, I don't even enjoy spending time with people, places, and things that want to tell me that what I'm choosing isn't right. Like, if you don't agree with what I'm choosing, that's okay. You have every single right to not agree with me. And I'm not even going to make you try to agree with me. But there's one thing that I think that with all of us awakening, there's one thing that you really have to start being aware of is you can't allow people who want to make you wrong to continue to perpetrate your space. You can't give them room to come in and tell you what you're doing doesn't work for them. If it doesn't work for them, that's fine. There's the door. Everything, all of that is. And all of that, 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 all of that. Can we just choose to remove all of that from all of the universes? And can we just choose that now? And vaporize, 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 vaporize. Just let it go, 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 let it go. One of the things that I think is really important as you really start evaluating your relationships is to always make sure that you're acknowledging about what's true about your relationships. If someone is accusing you of something, if someone is projecting energy of wrongness at you and telling you what you're doing is wrong and here's all of the reasons why, I really invite you to really look at what's real and true there. Is it really real and true that you are being selfish, or you're being this, or you're being that, or is it more true that they're just not capable, or they're just not willing to let go of the self-destructive patterns that are burying them? And what if that's okay? That right there, just receive for a moment. And everything, all of that is, can we just choose to remove all of that from all of the universes? And can we just choose that now? Vaporize, 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 vaporize. Awakening is not about anyone else. Awakening is realizing that you want your life to be different and chasing what you want, standing in what makes you feel good, and being the space of releasing what doesn't. We're in this new paradigm of creation. We're in this new paradigm of realizing that our thoughts create our reality. Right? Our reality does not create our thoughts. And when you start surrounding yourself with those that realize that every single one of us is vibrating at a different frequency and vibration, and there's nothing wrong with anyone. some people, I see this so often, like people, and I know this was even true for me, right? I went through a major awakening and I changed my whole life. I changed my career. Um, I released, I mean, I moved from my home. I let go of my business. Like I released everything that no longer worked for me. And was it a difficult process? Um, I'm gonna say yeah, it was a difficult process because it's unknown, right? It's kind of scary to go through this major transformation and not know what's on the other side. But when the pain of holding on to what doesn't work for you anymore gets so intense that you have no choice but to let go of it, and you do, and you realize that the universe has this amazing place for you, this place where there's people and places and things that are waiting for you, that are way greater than those energies of those that didn't work. One of the things I see a lot of times with many people that go through an awakening is when their family and even when their spouses aren't really willing to take any personal responsibility for what they're creating or what's going on, and they start to get to this place where they're like, okay, listen, like this doesn't work for me, and this doesn't work for me, and this doesn't work for me, and the spouse or the person that they're with, instead of acknowledging that, like, you know what, it doesn't actually work, they go to that place where they make them wrong. And I know that people start to get buried in this idea and this energy of like, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm not moving in the right direction? And they start to loop. And I want to tell you right now, when you start looping in your head, um, that is 99.9% percent of the time wrong. Like the looping energy is actually the energy that's keeping you in self-doubt. And the reality is what is true for you always makes you feel lighter. Always. What's heavy for you always makes you feel wrong. It makes you feel um, heavy. It makes you feel like you don't know what you're doing. What is true for you always lines up. It's got a lightness on it. I mean, does it take some work to create it? Yes, absolutely, because it takes some conscious choice. Like you can't be on the fence and create a light life. Like you kind of really have to be in that space where you are ready to create change so dynamically that you're willing to choose something that you've never chose before. Everything, all of that is. And all of that, 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 can we just choose to remove all of that from all of the universes? And can we just choose that now? And vaporize, 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 vaporize. And the blame generally kind of ensues at that point, like, oh well, just because this and this and this, and the blame starts, like all of this, and I'm going to tell you guys that 99% of the time when someone starts to blame you, if you really look at the situation as a whole, you weren't happy in that relationship in any way, shape, or form anyways. And if someone wants to blame you instead of actually go, you know what, I care for you and I love you, and let's look at this and let's change this so it works better for us, that's one thing. But if someone goes, no, you're wrong and here's all of the reasons why, it's really time to evaluate that. What is true about that? I see so often, especially with people that I work with. There's a lot of people that they wake up, and again, I go back to, like, this was true for me too. There's a lot of my life I had decided I had to be or do that didn't truly work for me. And the thing is I think people get so scared of changing because they feel like, what if they're making the wrong choice? And I'm going to tell you right now, that's the energy that's actually stopping you from creating a life that works for you. If you are aware in any way, shape, or form that some of the things that you're doing or some of the people that you're surrounded with don't work for you, I'm going to guarantee you that you're right, you're true. Whether you acknowledge it or not is a different story. But the thing is it doesn't even have to be about being unkind. And I'll go right back to, you know, releasing people who don't work for you is not about making them wrong. It's about allowing you the space to grow and realize that not everyone in this world is going to work for you. There are going to be people in your life where you're just going to have to let go of. And not for the sake of that you don't love them, because you may love them a lot, but you have to love you more. Everything, all of that is. All of that, 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 all of that. Everything, all of that is. Can we just choose to remove all of that from all of the universes? And can we just choose that now? And vaporize, 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 vaporize. And then there's going to be other people in your life where you start talking to them about all of the things that you're learning and all of the things that you're growing and all the things that you're releasing in the way that you want your life to be. And they're going to go, cool, let's go. And they're going to jump in that wagon with you, and they're going to go with you. Those are the people that you hold on to. And there's going to be those people where you want your relationship to be different. And I'm going to tell you right now that there is situations that you definitely can change. And I've done in many of the shows like the energy pulse, and that's kind of my go-to. That's kind of my first thing. When someone's mad at me, or someone's throwing me an intensity of something that I'm being or doing doesn't work for them, I'm going to pull and receive, because I want to have that information so I can truly release whatever it is inside of me that's creating that reaction for them. More space, more space, more space, more space. I'm in a place in my life where I'm not really interested in and holding on to any what's the word I'm looking for? Any upset or restriction in any way, shape, or form. I'm ready to have that life that feels easy 110% of the time. And if you want to go with me, and if you want to grab on and have an amazing journey of ease and fun and joy, I'm in. And if ease and fun and joy sounds like something you can't have and you're not interested in, and it sounds like it's not possible, and that's not blah, 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 and you feel all of this reaction coming up in you, and you don't feel like that's something that you're capable of choosing, that's fine. You don't have to. Because ease and joy and fun is not for everyone. And I am not for one very second going to make you or talk you into choosing anything that you don't want to choose. And when I started living in that viewpoint, when I started buying that as my reality, and when I started demanding that show up for me, I started to realize how very worth it I am. And I started to realize that when I started to vibrate at that experience, when I started to demand those energies show up for me, I started creating my reality as being very that. And that doesn't mean that my life is without any incident, but what it does mean is that no matter what someone else's projection or expectation becomes, I am really able to change that. And even when someone wants to get frustrated at me or throw an intensity that blah, 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 I no longer have to choose it. And it's probably one of the most freeing feelings in the whole world. I was telling someone earlier today, I had an experience over the weekend. Well, just actually, it wasn't even over the weekend. I don't know why I keep saying that. It was yesterday. I had an experience. And this person was throwing all of this intensity of like how I needed to do something that I was very aware of. The request that they were making of me was something that they were not able or even interested in following through with. And once I became aware of that, and that's one of the things that's so amazing about really being aware and being awake, is you're going to realize that people are going to throw intensities at you that they have really no intention of following through with. You know, when you have those experiences when so and so says, "Oh, do this and this and this, and I'll do this and this and this," and you know all well that they're not going to do what they just said they're going to do, and you know that, and you go, oh gosh, I should do it anyways because they're asking me to, but I know they're not going to, and it's going to make all of this, and you go into all of this story back and forth and back and forth, right? Well, when you go through your process of awakening and you start to realize that, you know what, once I get an awareness that you're asking me to do something that is going to work out not good for me, I'm not interested in choosing it, period. And I don't really care how much you're going to stand in front of me and you're going to tell me how potentially I'm a bad person, or I'm not doing quote unquote my part, or whatever it is. Even though they may not be verbally saying that, it's kind of that implied energy of um, well, you won't do this for me, so that means all of these things, when it honestly doesn't mean any of those things. When you start actually pointing out that the energy that people are projecting at you when they're saying, I'm going to do this and this is what it's going to mean about me, and if you don't choose it, this is what it's going to mean about you, when you really look at the truth of that and you look at what you're aware of and you're willing to go, no, you know what, this is what I'm aware of, without even saying it. Like, it was a situation basically where someone wanted me to do something for them, but and they said that they would come back and fix it later, and I'm like, no, I'm very aware that you're never going to come back, and then I'm going to be stuck with this problem, and I'm not really interested in being stuck with the problem, right? Like, I'm all set. I just want the problem to go, and that's basically why you're here, is because you're supposed to take care of the problem. And it was like, no, but I'm gonna store this at, here, and then I'll come back and fix the problem later. And I'm like, no, because that's not actually my problem. And I'm kind of being very vague here, but essentially, it was kind of like, I guess I can just tell the story. Essentially, I mean, we just moved. We just moved into a new home, which is why I haven't had a new radio show in a couple weeks, and we were supposed to have a brand new washer and dryer, and the washer and dryer that was placed in our unit that we bought did not have a brand new washer and dryer. It had one that was supposedly quote unquote almost new, had just been used temporarily. Well, the temporary usage had this just disgusting stuff all over inside of it, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not cleaning that because this is not what I was promised, right? And I'm pretty sure it was ruined. I mean, that was my awareness, was there was no getting that out. It was definitely not something that was cleanable. Well, the person that was here wanted to store it and clean it later, and wanted to take it down and store it in my brand new basement. And my awareness was, as it was going to go down the stairs, it was going to cause some damage, and the reality is no one was ever going to come back and deal with it, and it was essentially going to become my problem. And I was like, yeah, no, that's not going to work, because I'm not really interested in trying to I don't want the damage on my stairs. Number one, I don't want the I don't want the product in my basement. I don't want to have to figure out what to do with it later. So I said, yeah, no. And it was like, oh, well, if you let me do this, I'm going to donate it, and it's going to help other people who donate. And it was this big long, and it was like, the reality is no. What I'm aware of is it's nobody's ever going to come back and get this. And I'm not compromising myself any longer. And I'm sorry if that upsets you, but I will not compromise me and what I know any longer. And when you go through that awakening process and you start to realize that there are going to always be people, places, and things that come into your life that want you to compromise you. And I'm not saying this from a standpoint of like, oh, you have to be selfish, because it's not about being selfish. It's about realizing that, like, that doesn't even work for the person. When I looked at that, like, the person doesn't even want to do that. The reality is the person feels bad for whatever reason about trashing them, when in all actuality, like, they had already been trashed. So when you look at the truth of it, is the truth of the matter was they were already broken and they were already trashed, and for whatever reason, maybe it's because they spent money on it and they didn't want to, I mean, there's lots of reasons and justifications around it, right? But the thing is you have to start acknowledging what you know is true, and you have to start standing in the energy of your truth, no matter what those around you want to say about it. And I wasn't being unkind, and I wasn't being mean. And the thing was there was this uncomfortable projection around it of like what I was, because I was saying no, and I wasn't even saying no with I'm going to say with like rebuttals. I was just like, yeah, no, sorry. Like, it's not going to happen. And I just stood in that, and I was aware of the uncomfortableness around it, right? And I was aware of the projections and the expectations that this person had, and the viewpoints that they had, and instead of making me wrong in any way, shape, or form, I just stood in me, and I just stood in what I knew. And I was fine with it. And everything that doesn't allow you to stand in you and stand in what you know, everything, all of that is. All of that, 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 all of that. Can we just choose to remove all of that from all of the universes? And can we just choose that now? Vaporize, 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 vaporize. There's going to be family around you. There's going to be people around you. There's going to be things that come up with your coworkers and the friends and the family that you have. And one of the things that you have to realize as you wake up is you have to start standing in what you know and what's true for you. And if they want to make you wrong, that's okay. That's not yours, that's theirs. And when you get to that place where you're willing to be that space of like knowing that no one can take your personal power and your personal peace away from you. And if they want to continue to choose their upset and their wrongness and their projection of baloney, that's okay. Let them have it. It's not yours. Every time you re-choose any of that upset, any of that sadness, I see often that people will start pointing fingers and saying, oh, you're doing this because blah, 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 and blaming and shaming, and people will go into sadness and feel bad. And I'm like, why do you feel bad? And why do you feel sad? Is any of what they're saying even true? Is any of what you're sad about even true? Everything, all of that is, can we just choose to remove all of that from all of the universes? And can we just choose that now? And vaporize, 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 vaporize. So as we move forward here, and you're looking at what to do when your family's mad at you, I want you to ask yourself, is anything that they are mad at you about even true? This awakening that you're experiencing as you step into the true power and potency of who you are. It's okay if other people are not okay with it. It's okay if people don't want to come with you. You know what I found is there's been a lot of people where I've been like, okay, that's cool. Like, here's where I'm going. I'm headed towards this peace and ease. And you know what? A lot of them come anyways. They may fight and kick and scream. but I let them have their fight and their kick and scream. I don't buy into it. I don't play into it. I don't make it right or wrong, because everything is just a point of view. Yeah, everything, all of that is. Can we just choose to remove all of that from all of the universes? And can we just choose that now? And vaporize, 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 vaporize. Nice deep breath. Awakening is a journey. It's a journey to finding you. It's a journey to finding what works for you. Realizing that your life, it can be anything that you desire it to be. And those that will come with you will come. And those that will not, that's okay too. As you continue to awaken and as you step into more and more of you, you start to realize that the people that go away from your life, the people that leave your life, were never meant to be there in the first place. And maybe it's about karmic baggage, maybe it's about past lives, but the reality is when you release the ties, you get the freedom to be you. Yeah. So I hope today I was able to kind of help you shift and change some of that energy that comes up when your family is mad at you, or someone that is around you is angry with your new life choices. Giving them space to have it and allowing yourself to acknowledge what's true is probably the greatest tools that you can give yourself. I'm currently working on lots of new things for each and every one of you. I have some new groups starting. If you're really looking for some assistance in awakening you, and you really need someone to help you, please reach out to me. I am currently filling my newest small group that will be starting at the beginning of next year, 2019, and I would love to have you. I would love to help you awaken every single part and piece of you. So I only have a few more spaces left, so if you're ready to jump in, please contact me. You can get a hold of me on my website, www.jamie-bates BATES.com, or you can find me on Facebook. You can join my Expand Your Reality Facebook group, and there I share tips and tools and things to help you that way as well. And you can ask any questions that you have, or you can also find any programs or anything that I have. Playing in Polarity is getting ready to kind of be overhauled into some new things that I am creating, but really, if you need help reducing your polarity, getting out of your upset, please contact me and I will help you find what it is that you require to get you moving and shaking on your awakening journey. Thank you so much for listening to me today, and I will definitely talk to you next week. If you have some show ideas or something you would like to share with me, please get a hold of me and let me know, and I will talk to you soon. And Kiwi says, have a good night. Thanks.
You have been listening to Expand Your Reality with your host, Jamie Bates. Thank you for listening.